Welcome back to Switch to Linux. This is the Privacy Edition. Before we dive on into the news, my new book, Synaptergy, is set to be due out May 19th. I'm recording this at May 15th. That is 4 days away. You can head on over to synaptergy.com or tlm.li/s for more information. You can actually come over here and read Chapter 1 right on the website, see if Chapter 1 hooks you. And you can actually sign up for the newsletters over here. I did send out coupon codes today. And the next newsletter is going to be when I start to see the book available in the stores and in the audiobook platforms. You can also listen to the sample of the audiobook here. Audiobook will be out maybe up to a week after the 19th. I'm still working on finalizing a few of those, and most of the rest of this stuff is pretty good. You can head on over to my channel at Writing Done Right to see. I just actually worked on the finalized the front and the back cover for the print book is all done today. I actually did a whole video on that on GIMP. So let's go ahead and dive on in though to our into our news, though. All right, so first and foremost, Amazon is quietly fighting against sweeping facial recognition ban in Portland. I think I wrote Seattle in the description. I'll have to try and remember to fix that. I don't know why. But anyway, Portland has a new bill coming through that's going to outright ban facial recognition in both public and in private situations, like an outright ban, like done. Because there's a lot of problems and challenges. Well, Amazon's like, no, we don't really want that, but they're trying to be quiet about it. They don't really want to draw attention, but they've spent $12,000 lobbying against facial recognition in one city. That's kind of crazy. They really want to use the facial recognition. The facial recognition for them is really a big meat of what they're doing. Remember the recognition product, which they sell to law enforcement, a huge global nationwide tracking system that they have. Honestly, that's kind of freaky and scary. So Amazon is lobbying against that in Portland, and probably other places where you might see that show up. All right, on to the next news from the Register. Stop tracking me, Google. An Austrian citizen files GDPR legal complaint. So this is over the advertising ID, and I'm actually surprised. GDPR actually came out 2 years ago this month. It's not shocking. 2 years ago this month is when this stuff came out. And the advertising ID is just now being tested, which is interesting. So this is if you head onto your phone on both an Android device and an Apple device, you can head on into your phone and there is an advertiser tracking ID. So there is an integrated ID on your phone that tracks any company tying into that methodology into the tracker ID of your individual device, which is a terrifying prospect. And yes, Apple and Google both have these. And what the citizen alleges is that you do not have a way around this, and you cannot opt out on a paid product like an $800 smartphone. And so he is suing over the existence. Now, Google says, well, you can just go in and reset it. Well, resetting it isn't disabling it. I think Apple, you can disable it. If I remember, you can disable it on Apple. But you can reset it on Google, in which case it'll continuously tie it. So if you change your ID every day, everything that you do kind of basically shows up as a new person. I'm really surprised it took 2 years for somebody to start challenging this stuff. And it's something that definitely does need a little bit of challenging. All right, on to Microsoft's new Family Safety app is now available to preview on Android and on iOS. So the app syncs with Windows, Xbox devices. Basically, it says, hey, we'll check on everything. You can put this in. You can monitor your screen time, the application usage, the location. Pretty much every single thing is all tied into your wonderful little Microsoft account that is easily available for, government agencies to reach in there and grab all that data at will. Why in the world you'd use a product like this is totally beyond me. And I understand, there's some validity to something like this to make sure that your kids are doing crazy, silly things or not doing crazy, silly things and whatever else. With that, I can understand a little bit, but man, this is just giving way too much information to Microsoft. So it's now available, available on all these different platforms. Develop healthy habits. Yeah, Microsoft's going to help us develop healthy habits. Hey, Microsoft, why don't you develop the healthy habit of stopping scooping up our data? There you go. All right, Alphabet. This is good news. Oh, this is such good, happy news. Alphabet actually abandons the plan. You guys, where's Anna Rita at? Anna Rita, where are you? Because Alphabet has abandoned the Toronto plan. They're no longer be taking, I think it was at 10 or 20 city blocks in Toronto and making a full-fledged smart city. Among many other reasons, a lot of citizens are going, no, we don't really want Google collecting every bit of data about all of these people. So they're blaming it all on the current pandemic-iness, but at the same time, there were a lot of factors that went into this. You can't blame that one thing when there have been a lot of issues, problems, challenges, and delays and fights over who owns what ever since the beginning. But the good news is that Google is abandoning the smart city in Toronto. Yay! Very good stuff. Very good stuff. And on to the story you probably all clicked on the video for. The Senate votes to allow FBI access to your browsing history without a warning. Now, this is another one of these single vote makes all the difference stories. So there's actually an interesting single vote story that kind of goes another direction. This is long ago. If you're unaware, Texas became a state by a margin of a single vote. And he was voted in by the guy who voted for Texas on the single vote, was voted into office by one guy who was also voted into office by one guy. So 3 chain successions of a single vote got Texas in a state, and half of you in Texas love that, and half of you in Texas hate that. All right, this is the half of you that can hate that. So this is a part, so this isn't like a bill that had to go through Senate and then Congress and then signed by the president. This is an extension to a portion of the Patriot Act. So Patriot Act trying to spy on everything. Of course, the Patriot Act has this wonderful pithy new title because they always love the pithy titles. Providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism act. Oh, how cute. Maybe if these government officials can stop pretending like they're in kindergarten for 5 minutes, maybe they could do something good. But anyway, what happened here is that everything is shut down, of course, and half of the Senate's not showing up because they're like, oh, we got to stay in place. We got to shelter in place, people. So nobody showed up, so they brought this extension to the floor to vote on with almost nobody there. And they kind of knew that almost nobody, almost everybody that was absent was actually going to vote against it anyway. So they needed, I think, 60 votes to not pass it. Basically, it was to add an amendment. The thing was passing either way. The question is, are they adding an amendment that required a warrant to get search history from a U.S. citizen, which is completely, this is so unconstitutional. My guess is this is probably going to be challenged and will lose. But that being said, the vote was to put an amendment into the system that would require a warrant. They needed 60 people to pass the amendment, and they got 59. And we know for sure Bernie Sanders was going to vote for this, but he wasn't in session. And so there you go. We can blame Bernie on more, right? Bernie, you didn't go to work, and so this happened. This is what happens when you don't go to work, people. And so what this basically does is the part of the division here is that if the government's just on a whim, I guess, maybe plays a Flynn and wants to find you guilty of something, they can simply go to your ISP and say, hey, we want all the records. And the ISP company, it's going to depend. Google generally says, hey, we're not giving you anything without a warrant anyway. Microsoft kind of says, we're not giving you anything without a warrant anyway. Allegedly. I'm sure they have backdoor deals where they do. But on paper, on the books, on the surface, they still require a warrant. But this is kind of this kind of gets rid of the requirement. And so they could go in and say, hey, we want to see what this guy's looking at. So who do they go to? Well, your ISP to look at your DNS logs. So unfortunately, this is now causing me to rethink, do I now want to require, or not require, but do I want to now recommend people use a VPN for generic internet searches? Or do I even want to recommend the DNS over HTTPS. Now, maybe what I'll look into doing is how I can establish my own DNS over HTTPS and control that server. That is something that's going to block this because your ISP can't see what your lookups are if in that case. HTTPS, if the website is encrypted, which almost everyone is now, they can see the URL, but they can't see any data that's going back and forth. So they could see that you're on an individual website, but they couldn't actually see which pages you're looking at. So, you know, if you're on the anarchist cookbook.com, if such a thing exists, I'm guessing it probably does, then, hey, they can actually see that you're over there on bad sites. But if you're on some other weird nebulous site that happens to have a little small section donated, dedicated to such things, they wouldn't be able to necessarily see that as long as encryption is in place. So there's ways around this, like in theory. There's ways to make it a little bit more difficult. But nevertheless, if you're just connecting directly to your ISP, not visiting websites on HTTPS, then it makes it very easy for them without a warrant to just say, hey, we want this data. And then the ISPs are generally saying, sure, why not? Have it. Go for it. So that's what's going on with this case here. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Don't forget, take a look at Synaptergy. We will be running some extra sales here, probably at least for the first month or so, and then it's going to go on back up to full retail. So have a look at it now. Link will be in the description down below. Thanks for coming along, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.